Welcome to the Time Capsule Show, where we explore the meaning of life in the 21st century through the eyes of people just like you and me. I'm Monica.
And I'm Joenrhuz.
And today we have a very special guest, Ms. Claudia Agudelo. She's an esteemed real estate specialist, former interior designer, and hashtag the Feisty Colombian. Claudia, great to have you on our show.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I mean, it's really an honor to be asked to be part of this show. And yes, I am Claudia Agudelo, but I recently got married. So I'm actually now Claudia Rosario.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So can you tell us, what inspired you to take on your profession and current path that you're in?
Well, it's funny. When I was in high school, I had this whole image in my head that I was going to be a fashion designer. Okay. So I applied to 4 different colleges. I'm originally from Maryland, and Maryland during that time didn't have any colleges for interior design. So I had to actually look for colleges outside of Maryland. And here I was, I got accepted to all 4 colleges, and I'm getting ready to go to college. And then I find out that the fashion design industry, I have to learn how to sew. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't like to sew. And my mother was like, what'd you expect? And I thought, well, that I was going to draw and I was going to design and somebody else would actually sew. So I was like, okay, that's not really going to work. I always knew that I loved design. I just didn't realize what type of design that I really was going to love. So, oops, sorry, that's my dog. So what happened was later in my life, that's because his father's outside doing his own thing, and he's a little upset that his dad is outside. Yeah. So later on in life is I actually went back to school. So I got into the healthcare industry, and then I got married, had kids, decided to go back to school and really go into design back in, I think, 2000, early 2000s. HGTV had tons of shows on interior design. They had shows on staging. And I fell in love with one specific show, which is called Divine Design, Candace Olson. And that made me realize, wait a minute, I think that's what I could be good at. So I went to school because of that show and went to school for interior design. That pushed me to do real estate staging. And people used to ask me, well, why staging when you went to school for interior design? And basically it was because when you work in interior design, you're working with people and you have to actually do whatever it is that they want you to do. But as a stager, I get to choose what's going to be in that home. So that was like a better fit for me. So I started my staging company in 2007. Within a year, I grew it tremendously and got to meet a lot of agents. And I was introduced to a broker for Remax in Maryland. And she came to me one day and she said, I love your work, and I would rather have you work for me instead of my competition. So what are we going to do about that? And I said, oh, okay, make me the in-house stager. And so that's how really it shifted from staging into real estate in itself. Because of my corporate background in management, I was just asked, would you consider actually managing some real estate teams? So I started managing top producing teams, shifting everything that I learned in healthcare and just shifted over to real estate and realized I love this. And the position really evolved from staging into business development. And I just started working with agents and just started coaching and training them, getting them to be the best agent that could be. And I just loved it. So that's how I got into real estate. And I'm still doing that.
Oh, wow. So you really had like a really long journey. Is there something that, you've kept with yourself along all those careers that you've been through, like a special thing that you lived by, a special code that you put in all your future endeavors moving forward?
Well, I am a Christian, and so my faith, my beliefs, and scripture to me, especially when you're looking at the Bible, you'll get anything is possible with God, not with man, but with God, anything is possible. So that's really it. If you can think it and you can believe it, it could happen, especially when people say that you can't do it. I go, no, you're right. I can't do it, but with God, I can.
And I got to ask you, as a woman going through these huge corporate environments, being in real estate, did you find any difficulties, in the environment? I'm sure there were a lot of, men in these fields that were, cold towards, working with women, especially, in this new ages. So how did you overcome those struggles if you faced any?
It's funny. I had a discussion with my husband like a week ago, and I never felt any discrimination. And when we're sitting here doing this interview, you can't see how tall I am, or how I should say, how petite I am, because I'm only 4'11". I have a very strong personality. I used to tell people, "Am I strong-willed?" And what people have said to me is that you're very confident. So I've always been very confident, and no one ever discriminated against me. In fact, I worked actually alongside a lot of men were, my superiors, and I never had any issues. And I will say that every position I've ever had, I earned it all myself by myself. And I am Latina. My parents are Colombian. But I never felt discriminated, whether because I was Latin or because I was female. I have this personality that you hear me walking in, because I wear like 4-inch heels. And so, yeah, I think it's just a confidence that I've had that was instilled in me by my mother. I was raised by a single parent. And so, no, I've never had an issue in this industry with men. It's been actually the total opposite. And I take that as a compliment that I've been respected throughout my career.
After all, you are the feisty Colombian.
Yes, that's for sure.
So, Claudia, if you were pursuing a different path besides real estate and interior design and fashion and healthcare, what would you be doing and why?
That's a really good question, because I know what I would be doing. Actually, it's something that eventually that my husband and I will be doing together, and that's actually ministry. So that's been my heart's desire to talk about God and to really help. I guess I'm going to say marriages. Really, my husband and I both come from a broken marriages, and we found each other, and by the grace of God. And so what we want to do is we actually want to start a ministry for marriages, for brokenness, for families, for restoration. And that's what I would be doing right now if I could. So that is part of the plan eventually, soon, I think, hopefully.
So can you tell us more, like, what exactly is a ministry? Is that, like a religious organization? Is it a group of people who come together with, the same thoughts?
Yeah, so really it's like part of the church. I mean, I'm not planning to be a pastor. I know there are some churches that have women as pastors. No, that's not what I'm here to do. But how I look at it is that within a church is a committee. So basically it would be a committee of helping people find their way back to God, helping them build on marriages. So it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, you're a non-Christian, the marriages divorce rates are very high. They're just as high in the church as they are outside of the church. And so for me, what I've learned coming from divorce myself is that we need mentors. People think that, they look at getting married and they look at the wedding, like the wedding gown and all of that, and this whole party. They're not thinking of marriage itself. And I truly believe that if there's a mentorship program for couples, doesn't matter how old you are, that will actually be with you before you get married, when and during that marriage time, because we all go through seasons. There's always the first couple of years is that newlywed season. And then, what we went through with COVID, people staying home, and the divorce rates went even higher because people were realizing they were stuck together. I'm like, I'm not really sure I really like you after all. And so that's really, a ministry across any church. It's, you're looking at small groups, at committees of people of support. That's what it is. It's a support system. And I really do believe that I didn't have a support system. I know George didn't have a support system. And I think it's something that's really important. And I don't see that across, whether it's a church or any other place. There really aren't support systems to help people in a marriage. And so that's what we feel that we're called to do. So we're really excited to get that up and running.
Oh, that's really great. So, we hear a lot out there that they always say communication is key to a great relationship, a great marriage. Do you think it's just communication, or do you think there's something more to that?
Well, yeah, I do believe that there has to be communication, because you know what? I can't read anybody's mind, and he can't read my mind either. And I think what has happened, I think, is that, there are struggles, especially if we look at COVID, what we just went through. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their jobs. And so it's very difficult to, especially if you're the husband, in the marriage, and you're the sole provider, and you have been providing for this family, and now you've lost your job, not for it's because of COVID, everything shut down. And so there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of vulnerability. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people to come out and say, I'm hurting, I'm struggling, I need some help. And so you need to tell your spouse that. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that, because it's like, okay, I promise to take care of you, and I can't take care of you. And it's just being vulnerable to say that. So yes, communication, and really understanding, before you get to that point, understanding the language that your spouse communicates towards you, because you know, I don't have to say anything, you know, and you'll know if I'm mad, right? I don't have to say anything. And I'm mad. And so I think many times they'll say to, like, the husbands will say to a woman, like, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm cool. Nothing's wrong? No, I'm fine. I'm not fine, right? So yeah, so communication is not only just verbal, there's nonverbal communication. So yeah, it is important. And you know what? Really a support system, because sometimes, it's easier to talk to someone on the outside to help you. That's why people have therapists. I don't want you to get to that point. I want to help you before you have to get to that point, and show you how you can communicate with your spouse in a very healthy way, in a fun way.
For sure. Well, that's definitely important that, people have that support so they can build that foundation, for themselves, and so they can keep spreading love and happiness, not only with their spouse, but, but with the rest of their family and, their future generations. But now we're at the segment of our show that we like to call past, present, and future. So I just want to ask you, how do you see yourself now, and how does it compare to 5 years ago?
Well, that's really good, because 5 years ago, I was in the process of divorce. I was married for 25 years. And so there was a lot of sadness, in my life 5 years ago, and to the point where um, I didn't think that I could be here right now. There was a lot of sadness. I knew my ex-husband, since I was 14 years old. So we knew each other for 35 years, basically. So I didn't know. And I was living in Maryland. So it was 6 years ago, I was living in Maryland, and I moved down here. And my whole career, everything really shifted in what I was doing. And I didn't think that I would get to the level that I am now, because I had my own business. I was an entrepreneur, and I had to start all over again. Did I think I could do it? Yeah, but it was like, I have to start all over again from the bottom, and I had to work my way up. So that's where I was 5 years ago. And I wasn't thinking of, remarrying then. I had two kids, and it was, mom had to stand up and take care of her two kids.
Where did you find that, strength to keep moving forward in those times where, you probably felt hopeless and you felt sad?
I was raised by a single parent. My mom raised myself and my two brothers, and no contribution from our father. He left this country, and my mom worked three jobs to raise three children on her own. She was never on welfare. She just believed she could do it. She came to this country and knew she could do it. So she taught me. It was an example of her faith that God would provide. And so that was really for me that I turned. A lot of people would get angry at God, and I was completely the opposite. I became closer and closer to God. And I knew that with him that I could do anything. And I had to show my children that it was really my faith. My kids will tell you that it was my faith that kept pushing me along, that I knew that he would give me the strength that I would need to continue.
So with that faith and strength that you have with you to continue, how will things be for you in 5 years?
Oh man, I have so much going on, you know. God was gracious enough to send me the best husband that he possibly could. And so George and I have so much that's going to be happening, just mind-blowing things. I mean, let's see, George is writing 2 books. We're going to be doing a podcast. We're going to be starting that ministry. So, you know, our goal in 5 years from now is that that ministry will not just be here in the state of Florida, but it will be a program that will be able to go from all the way to California, and our plan is to make it global. So that's, you know, 5 years from now. Oh yeah, there's a lot that God has in store for us. So I'm very excited to see all the doors that he's going to be opening for us. It's some good stuff. He's already opening now. You don't know our story, but it's going to be part of George's book and the podcast that we'll be creating, hopefully within the next couple months, is that George, I met him through social media all the way from New York City, and I live in South Florida. So when people think about 2020 and COVID and it was the worst time of their lives, I can look back and say it was the best year of my life, 2020.
Like, can you share us more about that? Like, how did you guys meet? Over social media?
Really want to know?
Yes.
So I work for a brokerage, and I do the social media. So I'm in business development. So part of what I do is the marketing for the company. And I brought in an intern for the summer because she needed to intern somewhere. So she was majoring in marketing, specializing in social media. So her job or her responsibilities was to go in and post Instagram pictures and, you know, comment, and like she was the engagement coordinator. And so anyway, she posted this beautiful one of our listings. It is a 1 million, I think it was maybe $1 or $2 million condo on the beach and in Boca. And it had so the picture she posted was like the living room, and you could see outside, you could see the ocean. And so George, he commented so on that picture and saying, oh, that's exactly what I need. I need like 3 days, a weekend getaway. That would be ideal for me. So I read this person's comment and I liked what he said. And so I said to my intern, because it was her job to respond to anybody who commented. And I said, no, don't comment on that one. I said, I want to respond. So I responded under the brokerage name. So he has no idea that it's the Feisty Colombian. So I responded to him. And so we went back and forth, and you can see it in Instagram. So we went back and forth. Mind you, he had no idea who was sending him these comments. And he even invited me, not knowing who me is, to New York City. And I was inviting him to South Florida to come and come to our office. And so went back and forth. And I was like, oh, I like this person. Now, mind you, I had started a real estate show called Making It Real. And I was looking for realtors throughout the country, top producing realtors that I could interview on our show. So I ended up stalking this person, and I was like, who is this person? So I saw that he was called the unofficial mayor of New York City, and I saw that he had a really large following. I'm like, oh, this guy seems interesting. So I sent him a DM through my private Instagram, which is the Feisty Colombian, and I texted him or DM'd him, and I said, hey, I'm the one who's been communicating with you under my brokerage's name. And so I said, I have this show. Would you be interested in being part of this show? And he was like, sure. And I said, okay, so can we do a Zoom meeting? And he said, great. So we scheduled to do a Zoom meeting, and apparently George, unbeknownst to me, took one look at me, he says, and he knew I was the one, but he didn't tell me for weeks. I had no idea. So we met on Zoom. And when you talk to the Vice Colombian, make sure you reserve 2 hours because it's never a 30-minute conversation. So he and I talked for probably an hour, maybe close to 2 hours. And it was all business. This was nothing personal, it was all business. And then we did another Zoom meeting after that. And we were supposed to meet with my co-host. And something happened and the co-host couldn't make it. So again, it was just me and George. And then we did the actual interview live on the show. And he said by the third time, he said he couldn't handle anymore. He was like, I knew it was you. He says to me, if you watch the interview, you see how I'm trying not to look at you, because he's like, he said, I was just falling in love with you. And he wanted to say no. He had a broken heart. And this was a man that Monica will probably confirm with you, that told his friends and his associates for 4 years that he didn't want to fall in love again. He swore off love, he swore off women, and he swore off marriage. And then he met the feisty Colombian. And so, yeah, that's how it started. And so everyone in New York doesn't believe. I mean, people came and watched us on Zoom on our wedding, basically because they didn't really believe that he was getting married, because this man really swore off meeting. I mean, Monica will probably tell you, I don't know the man prior to July, but it was very quickly and very suddenly that he changed his entire life for me. And Monica will to confirm that. Yep.
It's so true, because it's like in November, he's like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with Claudia. And then December, oh yeah, Claudia's my girlfriend. And then he tells me January, oh, Claudia and I got married. I'm like, when? That's a little too fast, but it works. So.
When it's I've learned, when you do it by God, this was only God. This was only God. And I'm only telling you one piece. If I could continue telling you, this was only God. And yeah, I can't explain it to you how, like, all of a sudden I love this man. And we didn't meet until he came down here. And it was FaceTime every single day, twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. And I can't explain it to you, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. He is such a good man. And you guys, Monica, you know him more than I know him, but it saddens me a little bit that he was so against, marriage and love and women. And I'm so glad that God allowed to open his heart, and that he brought, me into his life. So he's such a good person. He's such a wonderful man, and he's so loving and caring and genuine. And truly, truly an honorable man. And how I tell him, because he honored God for all those years, that God honored him with a wife.
Wow. Yep. That's such an amazing story. I could definitely see this as a Lifetime or a Hallmark movie. It just really shows you how some things in life are just really meant to be. And it doesn't matter how long you've known someone. If something's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah, we'll just wait till the book comes out. There's so much that happened in this period of time that it can only be God. I mean, some of the stuff that this has been what I've said this past 6 months. I can't make this stuff up. I mean, I really cannot make up the stuff that's happened between us. And I'm like, it could have only been God. There's no such thing as a coincidence. The things that happened that brought us together, it can only be God. It really can.
So jumping off of that, Claudia, what principles do you live your life by?
It's always God comes first. It's God, and then then your family, and then work. So the principles is, I spilled coffee all over his book, but the Bible's always here, and as long as my life is centered around God, that's just it for me. It's always been. People always ask me, like, why is your belief so strong? I have a really long story, and I could be here for hours. If you've heard my story from the beginning to end, you would understand why my faith is so strong. I have 2 children. I have two children that I was told I would never be able to have. Seriously, I was told I would never be able to have children. And so there's things that have happened throughout my life that it's always been God, that if it wasn't for God, I mean, I could go on. I mean, I seriously, this is why I need like my own talk show. This is why we're doing a podcast, because there's so many things that have happened that if it's God, there is no coincidence in life. George coming into my life. I mean, let me tell you something. My son's name is Alec Christian. Okay. And he asked me months before I met George, he said, "Why did you name me? Why did you give me that middle name?" And I said, "You know what? I'm not really sure." But I mean, I gave him a very vague answer. Then I met George, and he has a son, and his son's name is Christian, and his son's middle name is Angel. So Christian Angel, and my son's name is Alec Christian. And when I heard that, I said to my son, "This is why." And his son Christian has had some sadness in his life. And so I said to Christian, I said, "Now I know why." And I said to my son, "Now I know why that God placed that name upon you, told me to give you that name, because he knew that one day you'd have a brother that would have the same name." He was already blending our family together before we ever realized it. So, yeah, principles, God comes first no matter what. Honor him. When you come closer to God, he'll come closer to you. If you honor him and be faithful to him, he will be faithful to you.
And with that in mind, with all the blessings that God has granted to you, has given to you, what would you say that you're grateful for?
You know what? This might be an odd thing to say, but I'm grateful for all the challenges. I am grateful for all the valleys that I've gone through. Because if I hadn't gone through everything I went through, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. That's what I'm grateful. I'm grateful that, I am surrounded by so many people, and that God has brought the right people into my life when I needed them to be into my life in the right seasons. So, I mean, I am grateful every single day that I wake up. But without all of those, you know, I don't want to say strategies, but challenges in my life, I wouldn't be the person that you see right now.
Number 6. If you were to leave something in a time capsule for people to dig up 100 years later, what would you put in there and why?
I am not, as you guys can tell, I'm not a writer. I'm a talker. I could talk all day long about anything. But if I had to leave something behind, um, actually, you know what I think I would leave behind? I would actually leave behind a journal of the scriptures that actually helped me um, during this time, of my divorce until the time now, and what's really sustained me are specific scriptures that I did write down. So that, and I do video, so I would have to throw a video in there of my story, because it wouldn't be the Feisty Colombian if she didn't do a video, because I am a talker. So yeah, probably images of my life, of who I was before, and images of, as George likes to say, that the second half of our lives is going to be the best of our lives. So that's probably what I would put in there, to show people that there's hope, you know, and love does win.
So, with that said, I think it's a perfect transition to our final question. Is there anything else you'd like to add to tell our viewers? Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave onto them?
Wow, words of wisdom. Wow, this is okay. This is a really funny story, but I just told George this a couple weeks ago, but years ago, I was invited to a baby shower, as a lot of us women are. And in this particular baby shower, when we walked in, they asked everyone that walked in, "Could you please," they gave everyone an index card, and they said, "Write advice to the new mother to be." And so I wrote something on the card, and it was put like in a bowl. And so after, the mother to be, after she opened up her gifts, then she was to go look at the bowl and pull out all of the advice, and she was supposed to say it out loud. So when she got to my advice, she pulled out my index card, and what I wrote on the card said, "Don't take anyone's advice." So you can imagine what all the women in this room looked at me and said, "Why would you say that?" And I said, "You know why I said that? Because each child is different. Each child is different. And only you as a mother will know what you need to do for a child. We get so stuck on these books, what to expect the first year, what to expect when you're pregnant. And then what happens is that you look at this book and it says by the time your child is 2 months, they should be rolling over or they should be crawling or they should be doing this. And then you go into a panic mode because your child isn't doing that. Well, your child is your child. So yeah, and I did believe in that. So my I guess piece of advice or my little wisdom is that believe in yourself. You don't have to look at people around you. Believe in yourself and believe in God. And if you're still here and you're waking up every day, that's because you have a purpose and you might haven't finished or you may haven't even started. When you wake up in the morning, wake up with expectancy. Wake up with, we all have a choice when we get up in the morning. You can either wake up with an attitude, really, or you can wake up and go, wow, I woke up today. So that means I have a purpose today. And I hope I get to fulfill that purpose. And if I didn't fulfill it today, I got tomorrow. So believe in yourself, believe in God, and you'll see, you know what? Your life is limited. You can do whatever. If you can think it, believe it, it can happen. I believed I was good, that God was going to send me a great man, and he did. He really did. So that's my advice is believe in yourself.
Well, Claudia, thank you so much for being a part of our time capsule. Thank you to our viewers for watching, and please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tune in again next week to meet another amazing addition to our time capsule. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.